الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. We all need to read together. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. قال الله تعالى في القرآن المجيد والفرقان الحميد بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. صدق الله العظيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
All praise be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and blessings be upon our beloved Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has showered us with countless blessings, and every day we should be grateful for all of the blessings that we have. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us another opportunity, another week. We are closer to the blessed month of Ramadan. Allahumma barik lana fi Rajab wa Sha'ban wa ballaghna Ramadan. Ameen. And many of the people sitting here are married. No. Many are married. And the Quran ayah which I recited in the khutbah, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا اتَّقُوا اللَّهَ حَقَّ تُقَاتِهِ وَلَا تَمُوتُنَّ إِلَّا وَأَنْتُمْ مُسْلِمُونَ, is an ayah which is read in the khutbah when a person is getting married. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam read this ayah. There's another ayah, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا اتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَقُولُوا قَوْلًا سَدِيدًا. So in these two ayat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا اتَّقُوا اللَّهَ, O you who believe, اتَّقُوا اللَّهَ, fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Person is about to get married, he's about to complete half of his deen, and he is being told, اتَّقُوا اللَّهَ, that fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all aware. Allah is all knowing. Allah sees everything that you do. Allah can hear what you say. Allah knows what is in your heart. All of these things are a way for us to understand the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when the month of Ramadan comes along, we become more conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we are very careful of what we do and what we say and how we spend our time. So this is something which happens because the shayateen are locked up and because we are more God conscious and God fearing. And there is a word which is mentioned which is called taqwa, which is having, some people have translated as having the fear of Allah, but another even better way of translating it is being aware of Allah, because we shouldn't be fearing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We should be aware that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all around, and Allah knows everything, and Allah sees everything, and Allah is constantly there. And this is when a person has this mindset, and when a person knows that Allah is watching and Allah can see everything, then he will be more careful with what he does. He will be much more, it's a very simple example. Person is at work and the boss never comes in. The boss is never there at the office. So he spends as much time as he can having tea and coffee and having a toilet break and having an extra long lunch because the boss is not there. But one day out of the blue, the boss turns up and he's there. He puts his head down and he's getting so much work done. He's never seen the break room. He doesn't go there at all. He doesn't need the toilet magically that day. So he's really working hard because he knows the boss is there and he wants to impress the boss and show, yes, I am a good worker and you need me. So in the same way, with insan, it is difficult because we cannot see Allah, but Allah can see us. So things are a bit hard. Now, what am I supposed to do? How can I be in a position? How can I control myself when I know that I cannot see Allah? But Allah is watching all over me all the time. So this is where a person has to be always conscious that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is around. And Allah is watching. And Allah knows all of the things that we do. And this is where if we have the mindset that Allah is all aware, Allah can see everything, then it brings a bit of peace to our heart. Because if a person looks at it the other way, this weekend the hadith that we have been reading after Fajr Salah, it's all been about being conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, feeding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a way that we know that it will be a reward for us. Just for example, in today's hadith, Bishopbriggs mentioned about the 7 people who will be under the arsh of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the Day of Judgment. We already know and we have heard and read this hadith many times, but I will, just as a reminder, mention all of the people. The first one is a just ruler, one who has been put in a position of authority, but he doesn't take advantage of that. He makes sure to look after all of the people under his rule, and he treats them in the best way and he treats them fairly. This person will be under the arsh of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But before we even speak about why they will be under the arsh of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we need to know the situation before. That on the Day of Judgment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make it such that the sun will be 1 mile directly above our heads. Now in a hadith, the word has been mentioned, meal. Meal can either be used for the actual distance of 1 mile, or it is that stick which is used to apply kohan on the eye of a person. It could be either that or the actual 1 mile. So we don't know exactly which one it is going to be, but all we know is that it will be very, very close. So imagine the heat that a person will feel, especially when the ground will be made of copper as well. So the only place where a person will be able to get the shade is under the arsh of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is one person who is Imamun Adil, that the person who is a just ruler. Second one is the one who, a youngster, who in his young age had that connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He had that God consciousness and that awareness that he knows from a young age that I have to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I have to do everything I can to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if a person does this from a young age, he'll be able to carry it forward for the rest of his life. Sometimes what happens usually is that a person gets so involved in his business, in his work, in his family, everything, that he very rarely finds the time for his deen. But if a person is able to do it from the beginning, this is going to benefit him much more better in the long run. So this is the next thing. After that, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentioned is the one who has a connection with the masjid. That he has a yearning, his heart is always wanting to be in the masjid. And he would always want to be close to the masjid. He's waiting for the next time that he's able to go to the masjid. So we have to have that within our heart. So that person will also be under the shade of the arsh of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. After that, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentions that رَجُلَانِ تَحَابَانِ فِي اللَّهِ, that two brothers, two Muslims who love each other just for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That no other reason, that all they do, because it is a command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is why they love one another. Next has been mentioned is a man who is approached by a beautiful woman, and she asks him to commit fornication, to commit zina, but instead he says, "Inni akhafullah," I fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he turns her away. That this person, he has done it, he could very easily fulfill his desires, but instead he has that fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he rejects her. The next one is the one who gives sadaqah. Sadaqah in such a way where his right hand is giving but his left hand doesn't even know that he is giving this sadaqah. That we are doing it only sincerely and for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nowadays we are living in a time of social media and all these different websites where a person, we see all the time on video, people are recording themselves that, I'm doing this for this person, I'm doing that for this person. Everything should only be done for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If by us encouraging and doing it in a certain way encourages and helps other people to do it, then great. Otherwise, we should always renew and check our intention. Why am I doing this? Is it to please Allah or is it to please the people? Because if you're doing it to please the people, only the people will be able to give reward. And those people do not want to give reward. And on the Day of Judgment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say, go to the person that who you done it for, and you can get the reward from them. But if we do it sincerely for only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will grant us that reward. And finally, the one about which this topic is that the one who sheds a tear, the one who sheds a tear out of the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give him protection of his arsh on the Day of Judgment. That just because of one tear rolling down his eye, because he is wary that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is able to either punish him or reward him, this is enough for him to gain salvation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these are the types of people that we need to try and go towards and be like. And when we look into the times of the Sahaba radiallahu ajma'in, there are many stories that we can see from them. One such is of Hadrat Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, that one day he had a worker who was working for him, and he came and he gave him some food and he ate it up. And the one who brought the food, he asked him that usually you say to me, where did this food come from? But today you did not ask, so just forgot. So then Hazrat Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, he asked, where did the food come from? He goes, back in my days of Jahiliyyah, I used to do some storytelling and project what things were going to be like. So basically a haram means of earning. So a person who I met at that time, who I had done it for, he met me and then he gave me the payment for that, and through that I bought the food and I have given it to you. So hearing this, of course, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, he started to put his fingers down his throat. He put his fingers down his throat so that he could vomit out everything that he had eaten, because he knew that it had came from a haram source. Of course, there was no need for him to do this, because he was unaware that where it had come from. But because of his God consciousness and because of his fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and not wanting to commit any sin, this is what made him do this. And he even mentioned that if this was to result in my death, I would have still have done it, because he had that much taqwa and fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In the same way, the narration which is mentioned about Hazrat Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, that after hearing the ayah, يَوْمَ يُدَعُّونَ إِلَى نَارِ جَهَنَّمَ دَعًّا, after hearing this ayah, يَوْمَ يُدَعُّونَ إِلَى نَارِ جَهَنَّمَ دَعًّا, which means that on that day that the person will be thrusted towards Jahannam, and a very strong thrust. After hearing this ayah, as the Umar radiallahu anhu, he became ill for 3 days. Just through hearing the ayah, that a person will be thrusted towards Jahannam. and people would go and meet him and go and see him. In another narration has been mentioned that Hazrat Umar radiallahu anhu, he had the ayah وَقِفُوهُمْ إِنَّهُمْ مَسْئُولُونَ, that stop them and they will be asked and questioned about everything that they done in the dunya. After hearing this ayah, he became ill for 1 full month, and he was just in a state of shock and in a state of awe. Today we read the Quran, but it has very little effect on us. So we need to make sure that we try and, the dua which we need to make Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that He softens our hearts. He softens our hearts so that the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can penetrate our hearts. A time, and Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentioned that a time will come when deen, it will just reach to the throat. It will not go past the throat. That nothing will go into the hearts of the people. So that basically everything will just be lip service. So a person says this and this is the way to do it, this is the way to do it, and that's it. But instead, we have to help and encourage one another. And one of the ways that a person can become more God conscious, a person can become better in his connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is by keeping good company. If a person is in good company, then you'll be able to have, either he can be of good effect to his friend, or his friend can be of good effect to him. So the more effort that we put towards our deen, this is the most important thing. That we have to put effort in our deen to gain the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The way a person, he strives in the dunya, he wants to earn so he can have a better living. We have to think of the big picture as well. That we have to stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala one day. And Allah will question, what did you do in the dunya? What did you do and how did you do it? So these are all the things that we can do, and these are the things that we can improve. It's very, very important that we always try our best to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to do such things, and to always remember, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentioned, in order to try and become a better person, always understand Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching us. Even though we cannot see Him, Allah is watching us. Allah is all aware. Allah knows exactly what we are doing, when we are doing it. The same way, like the example I gave about the boss, so to always think, Allah is watching over me. That when the time for salah comes, then I will get up, and I will do my best, and I will pray my salah. When our dealings with people is a very important thing. The way that we deal with people, we are interacting with people every single day. The way that we are with them, our manners, our etiquette, the way we present ourselves is very important. That this was enough at the time of the Sahaba in order for people to be called towards Islam, because of the way they showed themselves, the way they portrayed themselves. Today, when we look into the news, when we look at what is going on, it's always Muslim this and Muslim that. So if we present our deen in the best way, if we are role models the way that we are supposed to be, the way that Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam taught, it will have benefit for not only us, but the coming generation as well. That we have to look that they are children in our families, that they need to be given the best kind of training of how a Muslim should be. Now if we as parents, if we as grandparents are doing the best that we can in order to be the best Muslims, this will then go and roll on onto the children. If we are not making that effort, and if our children only see that we are making effort in the dunya, that dad all he does is he goes to work. He goes to work, and after he has done work, he comes and sits on the sofa and that's it, his day is done. Where is the child supposed to learn about the masjid? Where is he supposed to learn about the deen? So the only important thing the child is going to think in their head is work, because they see that the child, no matter how much we try to stop it, always understand that to the children, the parents will always be the best role models. They will always see, when you ask a young boy, what do you want to do when you grow up, he'll most likely say the job that his dad is doing. I want to do what my dad is doing. Or, and Ahmed, yes? You want to do the job that your dad is doing? Yes. Yes. So, if we try and be the best role models for our children, then, look, just simple example of Ahmed. Every Friday, mashallah, he's here for Jummah. He's supposed to be in school, but I'm sure his dad has spoken to the schools, we want to get him out for a while so he can come for salah. Something as simple as this. So he'll know for the rest of his life, I have to go for Jummah. My dad started me at a young age, I am here. So we are ready to make, different things when it comes to dunya, but we have to make that same kind of effort for the akhirah as well. That this simple thing that is being done for him, he will remember that for the rest of his life. And every single Jummah Salah that Ahmed will pray for the rest of his life, his dad will get the reward. So this is how our deen is. It's very simple, very rewarding. You pass it on and it keeps on going on and on and on. That sadaqah jariyah, it will always be there for us. So we have to make sure that we put in the effort as parents, the effort that always knowing that whatever I do is what my children will see. And the more that we push it, the more it will have a better effect. Allah SWT give us the tawfiq and understanding to act upon all of these things. Ameen wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. If everyone can move forward, fill in all of the remaining gaps and pray your sunnahs, please.